The Minnesota Timberwolves finished 8th in the Western Conference with a 42-40 record. With this record, they secured the 8th spot in the playoffs, but were knocked out by the Denver Nuggets. The main reason for their poor performance was that they had to overcome many different injuries. The Big Cat, Karl-Anthony Towns, missed 52 games, and it played a huge impact on the season as a whole. Still, things could get very tricky this offseason. Towns is a talented and skilled center, no doubt about that, but he's no longer the best player on the Timberwolves roster anymore. That spot belongs to the Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards. Towns has become more replaceable than he's ever been, and there's also been many rumors circulating throughout the season that they were willing to trade him for the right package. Now, that hasn't exactly been confirmed, but I could very well see it being true. Timberwolves head coach Chris Finch said this about the young core about a month ago. "We like our core. It's all about adding the right pieces. We were very, very happy to bring in Mike Conley. He was the perfect piece to bridge the gap between Rudy, Cat, and Ant. We felt like we learned enough about what we did this year, even though we had all the injuries and Cat missed 50-some games. We have a better starting point coming into next season from which we can go and build. We liked how we finished a little bit when we were healthy. We had good identity. We will be open, but this is not something that we're looking to pivot off of anytime soon." So, solely based on this, we can assume he sees Towns as being a big part of the team next season. But many executives around the league think the complete opposite. You see, the duo of Gobert and Towns just isn't going to fit, for one. Offensively, there is little to no spacing on the court, and on defense, while Gobert is one of the best, he often gets torched defending smaller players out in space in the pick and roll. Cat is just as bad a defender all around. So just imagine the Wolves play a team like the Dallas Mavericks or Golden State Warriors in the playoffs. Elite ISO guards like Luka and Steph Curry would pick those two apart in the postseason. And that's just one reason why they should split. The second reason is that both Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels are eligible for contract extensions this summer, and they will be expecting a lot of money. And to be fair, they rightly deserve it. So down the road, keeping Gobert and Towns would most likely come back to bite them. With the NBA leaning towards depth rather than star power, it's important that teams with championship aspirations keep as much extra money as possible to fill out the roster with quality role players. We are absolutely sure there are some out there who would rather trade Rudy Gobert, but I'll briefly explain why that isn't a good idea. It's obvious they're going for a defensive-oriented group, and Towns just isn't that. And the more important reason, you could get more pieces back for a young star like him. So just what should the Timberwolves actually do? Well, we've got a trade that would be absolutely perfect. You've seen the thumbnail. Trade Karl-Anthony Towns to the Boston Celtics for Jaylen Brown. I know, pause. Why would the Celtics even want to make this trade in the first place? The Celtics' elite duo was amazing in the regular season, and they each had their incredible moments in the playoffs. But it appears that the Celtics have reached their ceiling as a team. They, without a doubt, had the best team in the NBA on paper. They had two All-NBA wings who averaged nearly 30 a game, a former Defensive Player of the Year in Marcus Smart, an All-Defensive Team member in Derek White, two elite defensive centers in Robert Williams and Al Horford, and not to mention a Sixth Man of the Year, Malcolm Brogdon. They ranked second in both offensive and defensive ratings while arguably being the best three-point shooting team in the NBA. It does not get better than that. Almost. No other team was as stacked on both ends of the court as the Celtics, and they didn't even make it to the NBA Finals. Now sure, you could say the only reason they didn't make it to the Finals was due to Tatum's injury. But even when you put his injury to the side, you could tell the team's energy and assertiveness were off. The coaching was questionable, and Jaylen Brown played like a madman in his attempt to carry his squad with a hobbled Tatum, which was not a good thing. Former NBA player Brian Scalabrine explained it best. "I think they tried to do too much at times. Tatum had a bad ankle, Jaylen Brown thought, I have to do more. Sometimes against Miami, you don't want to try and do more. You want to try and do less. You want to take one triple and move it, and you will eventually wear them out." And they did it for 3 games to get back into the series. But this particular style of play always comes back to bite them when they're not making shots. But now, why would the Celtics even want Karl-Anthony Towns? And how would that work on the court? For one, the era of dominant big men is officially back. You've got 7-foot monsters like Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Giannis, and Anthony Davis all putting up video game numbers on both ends of the court. And Towns would fit perfectly in the Celtics offense that thrives with spacing. He shot 36% from 3 in his 29 games this season, and he shot 41% last year on 5 attempts per game. He's the best shooting center in the NBA easily. And Boston really could have used that consistency from 3 in that closeout Game 7 versus Miami. And with how good the Celtics defense is already, they can cover up Towns' mediocre defensive ability by sliding him to the 4 spot and inserting either Robert Williams or Al Horford at the 5. Or you just interchange the 2. Big Cat would give the Celtics offense a new look. His ability to get buckets in the post at a high level will force defenses to double team. Of course, leaving shooters open on the perimeter. But now let's talk about how the Timberwolves lineup of Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaylen Brown, Jaden McDaniels, and Rudy Gobert would certainly be a playoff team with the potential to shock everyone. The tandem of Edwards and Brown alone would be an extremely explosive duo to watch. They are both supremely gifted athletically, and we would just see highlight poster dunk after highlight poster dunk after highlight poster dunk, and then so on. On the defensive end, they're good there as well. Anthony Edwards is steadily improving defensively, and he has had moments this year where he looked like a premier lockdown defender. Now he just needs to build consistency. Playing alongside an all-NBA talent like Jaylen Brown would surely motivate him to put in consistent effort on this end of the court. Back in March, the month after the trade deadline, many fans thought that Jaylen Brown would be traded for Kevin Durant. That was one of the biggest rumors this season, and this was his response to that. I don't know, as long as I'm needed, it's not up to me. We'll see how they feel about me over time, and I feel about them over time. Hopefully, whatever it is, it makes sense, but I'll stay where I'm wanted. I'll stay where I'm needed and treated correctly. I'm bringing this up because some felt slight tension between Brown and the front office, even though he said they eventually patched things up and all got on the same page. After losing the way they did to the Heat, I'm sure it's only going to start trade rumors again. And by next season, even if Brown is still on the Celtics roster, I wouldn't be surprised if he forced his way out by next season's trade deadline, if he's involved in trade rumors again, because he's clearly stated that he wants to feel secure and feel wanted, which is understandable. And being consistently thrown in trade talks doesn't make him feel confident in that at all. Now, focusing back on the Wolves roster, they'll have a good chance of making it far in the playoffs due to Brown and Edwards. Pieces like Jaden McDaniels also increase that chance. He averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists while shooting nearly 40% from 3 on 3.4 attempts per game. The 22-year-old's offense has evolved right before our eyes. His shooting has drastically improved. His handles are slowly tightening up, and he's overall just being more assertive and aggressive as a driver. We know what he brings defensively. He was an amazing defender this season, top 10 for sure. With the way he can lock down the opposing team's best players, he has a high chance of winning a Defensive Player of the Year award within maybe the next 5 years. Yes, he is that good defensively. He can guard any guard or wing superstar in the NBA and does a fantastic job due to his length and unreal defensive instincts, all at 22, which is insane when you think about it. Another piece, like Mike Conley, could help too. He is 35 years old and will be 36 by the time the season starts up in 2024, but I think he's still pretty valuable on both ends of the floor. But I still wouldn't be surprised if he were replaced. Rudy Gobert is who really makes this team all fit together. His elite rim protection would make the Wolves' defense suffocating. He didn't have the year defensively he had years prior, but statistically, he's still a top 3 rim protector in the league. When you look at rim contest metrics, rim deterrence metrics, and defensive rebounding, he's in the top tier, which shows he is still an elite defensive tower. Offensively, he is not a scorer, but he's a great lob threat and one of the best screen setters in all of basketball, which will undoubtedly benefit Jaylen Brown and Anthony Edwards in ways only true basketball fans will understand. They would need to fill out their bench with a couple high-quality role players to maximize their potential. So if there was a way to package Mike Conley with Karl Anthony Towns to not only pick up Jaylen Brown but also Grant Williams, it would be a nice step in the right direction. But what do you think about all this? Should the Timberwolves trade Big Cat? And should the Celtics trade Jaylen Brown? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.